Hi, uh, this is Janet Fitch, and it is noon on Wednesday, so that means it is Writing Wednesday, where I answer your writing questions, craft questions, psychological questions, existential questions, all questions having to do with writing. Um, there's a lot of them. So if you have a question, you can rest assured that there are many other people going to have the same question and be too shy to ask. So please, if you have questions for me today, put them in the chat and I will be happy to answer them as we go along. And if you have questions for me in the interim, uh, the week is quite long and Writing Wednesday is only 45 minutes or so. Please send them to me through my website, janetfitchwrites.com, and I will be happy to to improvise. I don't write these, obviously, but I'll be happy to do a Writing Wednesday based around your question. So, welcome. I have questions today that people have sent, but I wanted to talk about something else. Today, I wanted to talk about um, avoidance and the Pomodoro method. If anybody has heard of that, I have recently been in an avoidance mode, which is where I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing, and there's a lot of emotion around it, and you end up um, not addressing the work you're supposed to be doing. And I think most writers have had that uh, difficulty in the present or in the past. Um, I have found that, like, I have a big rewrite to do right now. And so the pressure to do it is strong. And so the equal and opposite pressure to not do it is also very strong. And I um, try to um, force myself to do it, and then I can't. And lots of puzzles are being done, and books are being read, and reviews are being written, and everything is being done except for the one darn thing I'm supposed to be doing. And there is a method that several of the writers I know, in my writers group especially, have done from time to time, which is called um, the Pomodoro method. And in the Pomodoro method, you you use a timer. You make your intentions clear, what you intend to do with a 25-minute period of time. So everybody goes around and sets their intentions, and then you turn on it's called Pomodoro because it began in Italy, and the Pomodoro is a tomato, so it's one of those tomato kitchen timers. And so you'd set that to 25 minutes. I love a timer. Everybody who's worked with me has heard my praise of using timers for these kind of things. And you work for 25 minutes. And when the buzzer goes off, you take 5 minutes off, and then you come back for another 25-minute interval. And four of these intervals is a Pomodoro. And that's gets you through a couple of hours of work. And it's amazing how effective it is. I do it on Zoom with my writing colleagues. When I was stuck this week, I had to admit that I've done more puzzles than I've done work on my book, just avoiding. And uh, when I shared this with my colleagues, it turns out that many people are in need of a little bit of extra structure to their writing life right now, especially with all the craziness going on in the world. Um, it's especially distracting, especially a time of sitting there doom scrolling all day long. Avoidance, then full on disaster avoidance. How do you settle down to work? So we do it on Zoom, where everybody just assembles on Zoom for the 2 hour period, or even more than 2 hours. Um, the We've done it also in person. We're talking about the Pomodoro method, where you use a timer. You get together with other writers, and you're just kind of in the space together, and you can do it in person, gather, and you know set the timer for 25 minutes, set your intention for that 25 minutes. I'm going to work on this. And then you do that, and then you take a 5 minute break, stretch, and move around, then back for the next 25. And once you've done 2 hours, you've really broken through your avoidance procrastination problem. It has been so helpful. So it's a way of working with other people. We're using Zoom because we have people all over the place. Um, some are in town, some people are in other states, um, some people are in other countries. Um, and it's just like having a room. I think the legend of the writer's room, where we all get together and, people are trading ideas and so forth. I think the magic of that is the real time aspect of it. So here we are all over. Hi, Amy. We're all over the place as far as, our geographic physicality, but we're sharing a room. We look up, if you're on Zoom, you look up and there are other people working, and it encourages you to continue working. Um, So the Pomodoro method, I don't use a little tomato. I have my old kitchen timer died, so I've got a digital one, which I don't. It's not as personable, but I have a little cat one, which is really nice. There are all kinds of great little timers. I have a cat one, but it ticks, and I find that distracting. I don't like the ticking. Um, I've got that little annoying sounds are a problem for me. So I know that, and so I make sure to get a tickless thing. Um, and by God, you settle right down. We did it yesterday, we did it today, and I think probably this summer, in the middle, the welter of this god awful time we're in, it will really, really help us focus. Um, I have one of the writers on the call today was lives in Florida, and she has kids, and all that mommy stuff. So she had a bit of time, and she came on the Pomodoro, and um, she's getting work done. We were working from 10 to noon Pacific time, and then I'll come back after Writing Wednesday and do some more. And it helps move the needle. And anything that helps you focus in a time like this, hi Marie, anything that helps you focus in a time like this is a good thing. Um, Now, what do you do if you don't have Zoom? Um, Hi Jennifer, good to see you. What do you do if you don't have Zoom? How do you get together? Um, it might be somebody else's Zoom. It might be somebody who's not using it during the day. Maybe they use it to talk to their relatives at night, and you can use it during the day. Um, Try to find a Zoom room that you can use. Um, the Another thing to do is if everybody's kind of broke and nobody's got Zoom, is you can just go on a conference call on your phone, and everybody call in, um, and then you can do your writing in real time, even though you don't see the people. You're starting, You know you have 25 minutes, you know the timer goes off, and then you'll take a break and you'll come back, and everybody's live and everybody is working. I like Zoom because I can see that everybody's working. I just see them up there, you know, on their computer or the couch or wherever. So it's like a real time. It's not the same as a writer's critique group. I mean, you can certainly do that on Zoom. We certainly do. But this is generative. You are creating work as you're working. It's quiet. You're not, and it's actually, even if you're working in real, you're getting together somewhere to work. It it's such a focus to do the Pomodoro because there's not going to be all that time spent yakking. um, once the timer's set, you're going to focus. And focusing for a short burst of time is um, it's the most manageable and it's the most effective in focusing you. You lose focus after a while. And it's been pointed out that if people, their productivity on a Friday afternoon is much greater than on like a Wednesday morning because people make the most of that time. They know that they're going to get out of there and they want to have it. A short blast goes a long way. So you can do it on Zoom. You can do it. I know there are other platforms, video platforms. You could even, many workplaces have them, although to spend, 2 hours writing your book at work is sort of problematic. So GB, hi GB, says, does anyone still use a manual typewriter when writing today? The click clack sounds of the keys being pounded gives an upbeat feeling that I'm actually writing. That's nice. Many people do. They like the tactility. Some people buy a keyboard that makes that noise. I just remember my hands just dying when I was working on a manual typewriter. Um, but yeah, if that works for you. And then if you're with somebody who is a noisy typist, or with GB on an actual typewriter, you're muted. So, you can go ahead and pound away and it doesn't disturb the other people on the Pomodoro. Um, so does anybody use anything like this, or meet to write together with other people? There's a wonderful book by a woman named Judy Reeves who runs writing workshops in San Diego, and was the first person who ever hired me as a teacher. Um, and she has a book called Writing Alone, Writing Together. And I think there are all kinds of techniques to the real time writing group. She does lunchtime things called brown bag lunches. But these 2 hour sessions with a timer on Zoom with other people just will save my life many a time. Does anybody work with a writing group in real time to generate work, or is it a crit group? GB says, in the past, I've attended writer group get togethers at Tidal Wave in Anchorage. Oh, that's interesting. And I bet there's meetups that are specifically for this if you don't have a regular group. Laura, hi Laura. Laura says, I do a session on Fridays with a friend. We text each other and tell each other when we're starting, and that way we know the other person is writing at the same time. We don't live near each other. Yeah, so I do it on Zoom, but this is a way to do it if nobody has a Zoom account that you can use. Amy says, I meet with a friend from my MFA program once a week in person at a coffee house to write for several hours. We set a timer for no talking time. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's incredibly useful if you're a procrastinator. Usually, the avoidance, the more you care, sometimes the harder it is to do it, and the more you spend time doing every other damn thing. Um, so Jennifer says, I'm a solo writer, easily distracted by others, no coffee shops, and do 47 minutes of writing, then 13 for rest, tea, pee, etc. Yeah, and that works great too, having that timer. But if I'm in a real um, avoidance cycle, um, it's that extra accountability of having other people doing the same thing. Um, but distracted by others, if they're working and not making noise and not talking and trying to engage, the sight of them working um, sometimes helps settle people down. If I'm going, this works good. This works well for me. Uh, but this huge avoidance cycle that I've been in, I think would have been impervious to a solo venture because I haven't done it. Ergo, it hasn't been successful. uh, and some people, I mean, my husband has never heard of writer's block. He doesn't believe in it. He never had it. He doesn't avoid anything. His because he's working TV where it's every night, every night, every night. It's going to be live. So he never built up this kind of avoidance thing. Um, Whereas I'm very much prey to any kind of anything like this. Um, GB says about 7 years ago, while working in the Aleutian Islands, and that sounds like, wouldn't that be perfect, to be really isolated, you'd think? Aleutian Islands on Shemya, next door to Attu Island, I set up a Sunday afternoon writers group. Some of the greatest memories regarding writing efforts. Was that a real time? Were you in physical presence or was it on Zoom or on the text? The text method works wonderfully. Why not? So if you have avoidance issues, the tomato, the Pomodoro method, which is just the tomato kitchen timer and 25-minute increments with 5-minute breaks, um, is very refreshing because they're short. And then you come back, and then there's another shorty, and then you come back. So you get 2 hours free and clear. And once you're going, you can continue that for another 2 hours if you need to. So we have, uh, let's see, real time, real people, high tech military site. I was a commercial dishwasher. The others were IT types. Yeah, and then you actually wrote together. Well, that's excellent. Writers groups. See, I'm in a writers group, so when I have send up an SOS, um, people usually, if I'm having problems, they're having problems too. So we all kind of cure ourselves at the same time. Um, but, there are other kinds of groups where, people are writing really on their own most of the time. And then that group becomes even more important. Um, I mean, I didn't have anything like this when I was starting out. I mean, I took a class um, in college that was terrible, really terrible. And then I was on my own for years and just I was learning, struggling, learning. Got into a writers group that was not, it didn't suit me. It was mostly screenwriters here in LA. It was a big group. I met some excellent friends, people I still know from that group, but we had not had, the idea of getting together and writing or even, uh, you know, getting together in virtual reality. There was no texting, there was no Zoom. So in a way, the Zoom world, and especially since the pandemic, I mean, I see this as being together much more than I did before the pandemic. I mean, basically, I lived on Zoom during the pandemic, and now it's second nature. Whereas before, I remember at USC where I was teaching, and many other schools really wanted you to teach online and do Zoom or the whatever the academic equivalent was. And I fought it like crazy. I thought, oh, they just want to save money. They just want to cut down on classroom janitorial, blah blah blah, and just maximize the dollar. Um, but I don't feel that way about it anymore. I feel like there's so many ways that we're together that we were isolated before. Anything else about this issue? Anybody else struggling with avoidance or doom scrolling avoidance, and having trouble settling down these days? Or is it just me? It must be just me. I know you're doing it too. So we have a question here from the interwebs, um, about ensuring characters in fictional writing have unique voices and don't sound all the same. Now, we've had this question in terms of dialogue and in terms of character. You can see it's an issue from both sides. You always, people sound the same. First of all, there's no such thing as a stereotypical person. There's only a person that you haven't really thought through in their individuality yet. Um, so don't have, your stereotypical strong guy and your stereotypical flirtatious waitress and your stereotypical anything. See if you can always disrupt that by more specific observation of people. And the uh, their unique voices is oh, thank you. Uh, GB says, what I love about writing Wednesday is sharing information and inspiration from my personal ups and downs. Yeah, I'll tell you anything. Why, why, why hide? It's all what you're doing too. No matter how far down the line you get as a writer, um, it's always the same. It's the same for you, and it's the same for me. Um, So we're talking about how to ensure that characters have unique voices and don't sound all the same. Um, that when you know a character, very important is their physicality. So a vigorous person takes a deeper breath, uh, is more forceful in the way they speak. Um, there's kind of a rigor to it. Somebody who's very healthy and robust and works out, and you're going to see that kind of go-get-emness in the language. And somebody who is characterologically maybe ill, mentally depressed, etc., will trail off, won't finish a sentence, can't get the energy together. Who takes a big breath? Who lets their sentences kind of trail off? There are people now who, like our president, who don't finish a sentence. They just they put in some words that are supposed to symbolize something, and then they move on to another word or set of words or phrase that's supposed to mean something to the listener. They don't really speak in a complete sentence, and that's interesting. That's an interesting character to use. um, it depends on educational level. You have to decide for yourself, is the character well educated and speaks, do they speak carefully, or do they, kind of jet off the top of their heads? Are they sensitive to other people? You'll see that in the language. Do they ask, are you following me? Does this make sense? Or do they just talk and assume that everybody's going to know what they're talking about? Especially sometimes they throw in things that, no, we don't know what they're talking about, and the other person doesn't either, probably. Um, that's like the name dropper. Sally says, it's like, who's Sally? um, there's, how to distinguish voices. You start thinking about musical instruments. You know, in an orchestra, what would this person be? Do they have a deep voice? Are they a bassoon, which is the woodwind instrument, a little reedy but low and really loud? Are they a French horn? This kind of beautiful silver melodic, rich tones. Are they flute? Are they an oboe? Just like piercing. Um, are they violin? Supple and um, many notes at once. Um, uh, oh, here's a question. We were talking about focusing, and Marie says um, uh, that she has ADHD, and gum helps focus when I'm writing. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. If some people have those Greek worry beads, um, whatever, whatever helps. I usually have a cup of coffee, getting cold on the desktop, focus. Um, so unique voices, um, how long a sentence people have or short. People who are very introverted might have a long, um, kind of rambling little speech, because they're really talking to themselves. And some people are very aggressive, and that will show in their speech. You know, some people are seductive, so they try to pull you in as they speak. It's like, of course you agree with me. Of course we both know. Well, yeah, we know we don't. In hypnosis, I took a self hypnosis class with my dad. He was couldn't sleep and he didn't want to take drugs, so we took this class. And they taught you that hypnotic suggestion is where a sentence makes sense syntactically, grammatically, it makes sense, but it actually is linking two completely unassociated ideas with a because. And because makes the unconscious mind, which is like a child, makes the unconscious mind think that that sentence is true, whereas it's only true grammatically, like saying, um, you know, America is going to win this war because we are the best. Well, those two statements actually have nothing to do with each other. But the mind takes it in as, oh, we're number one because we're the best. It's just like, so you start noticing, they use it in advertising all the time. Um, uh, you'll never, your house will never, smell better because it's whatever. The hypnotic suggestions abound in advertising. So look at these false equivalences. Politicians, you're going to see it all the time. False equivalences, things that have nothing to do with each other, but because the grammatical structure is correct, the unconscious mind takes it in. So that's something you can give to a manipulative character, a seductive character. You want it, baby, because you're so beautiful. It's like, what? So Princess says, I've been avoiding my work in progress recently because I've come up with too many possibilities. Oh yeah. In a story which could go, in which way the story is gonna could go. Was wondering if you had any advice for dealing with this dilemma. Do I ever? I had an excellent, excellent shrink. Um, and I was working on White Oleander. And I got to chapter 6 or something, and I just couldn't figure out what I was going to do. I could go this way, I could go this way, I could go this way, I could go this way. What if this? What if that? What if that? And how would I know if I followed that down the road and then picked the wrong thing? I would have completely made a mess. And so I found myself rewriting that one chapter over and over and over again. And I was in despair and talking to my shrink. I guess one of the things I don't suffer in silence. If I have a problem, I'll go to someone, anyone, and look for some relief. And my shrink, who is an extremely good shrink, and I I'm a great advocate of therapy. Um, that she said, when you think that you have all of these possibilities, so that if you choose one, you've lost all the others, and you don't want to lose anything. So you you just can't choose, because if I choose this, then I've lost this, and that. And she said, no, Janet, in fact, until you choose, you have nothing. You don't have anything. Better to choose something and go with it. And then if it doesn't work out, fine, then you'll go back. But you can't just sit there at the crossroads going, I don't know which way to go. Pick something. And so I did. And I think I tore it out and picked something else. But at least got I got going, because you can sit there at the crossroads for a long time or write. The danger is also that you write chapters that don't really go forward. So you're just like milling around because you don't want to make that commitment to that direction. It's better to make the commitment to that direction. So that's my advice to dealing with this dilemma, is you're just going to have to pick one and have the other one in your pocket, or more than one in your pocket. Go with one of them that seems the most promising, or the one that you want that seems like it would be the most fun to write. How about that? Pick the one that looks like it'd be the most fun to write and write that. And then if it turns out that it didn't go anywhere, then you ditch it and come back to the crossroads and pick another one. Hopefully that doesn't sound too much of a downer. It saved White Oleander. It got me off that dime. It was really stifling me. So it's not giving something up to choose something. It's moving forward. It's making something happen. Let's see, what else have we got? I've got a bunch of questions here. Here's one. How do you write a story you have heard before? Now that's interesting. What is a cliche? Anything you've ever heard before, ever, and is banned, right? Language that you've heard before, that same old waitress, that you've seen in a movie, anything you've seen before. Okay. So what happens if you want to write a story that you've heard before? Well, what is going to be different about it? Otherwise, just reread that person's story. Why would you write anything if you've heard it before? The readers heard it before too. What are you going to rewrite Gone with the Wind? Moby Dick. However, you can use a story as the basis of your own story. So that, say, Moby Dick, there's, you know, I have a friend who wrote a story called a novel called The Great Eastern, and Captain Ahab is a character in it, and so is Captain Nemo. It's a very good book. Um, you can write a story, I just heard Ivy Pachoda talking about her new book Ecstasy, which is based on, it's a retelling of the Bacchae, or Euripides play.
Mm.
So how would that be different from the Bacchae? Well, first of all, the Greek drama, people believed in God, that this was a real story about the gods and how you treated the gods. And believe me, don't diss the gods, any of them, because you pay for that in Greek drama.
Mm.
Um, she was interested in the way that the cult of Dionysus, Bacchae, the god of wine and craziness, there was a cult that women tended to be the followers of Bacchus. And they had they're called Maenads, and they had these crazy like raves in the woods. Um, and the Greeks, it was a new religion, and the old people practicing the old Olympian god religions were not like super happy about this practice. Um, but to put it, what she does is she brings it into the present, and she's found a way to set the Bacchae story in a resort in Greece, and contemporary people, and yet the dark drama does play out. You retell in a way that will be relevant to your time and your place. Um, you use these stories. You're not just going to rewrite Tom Sawyer again, but who would Tom Sawyer be now? Maybe in an urban area, maybe in the midst of occupied an occupied city. Then where's Tom Sawyer? You know, I mean, James by Percival Everett has just been cleaning up on the awards. He won I think, both the Pulitzer and the National Book Award for his retelling of the Huckleberry Finn story, um, from the point of view of the escaped slave James. And he develops a whole backstory to Jim, uh, and who is this person, who could this person have been if he had gotten his due. um, and that's a wonderful way to write a story you've heard before, is take a different character and tell that same story from their point of view. You can do a backstory of that story. So, for instance, um, The Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys, Rhys, um, is tells the backstory of Jane Eyre, of the mad woman in the attic. Who is she? Taking just one sentence from Jane Eyre, which is about the crazy first wife of Rochester was from Jamaica, and from, I believe, Jamaica. And Rhys was from Dominica, I think, in the Caribbean. And she created a whole backstory of who that woman was and cracked open, a whole period, 1830s, in the Caribbean, politically, and slavery, and the old planters and the corruption and colonization. And it was an incredible book. Um, so you can pick a character, you can pick a backstory, you can move forward in a story, like what happened to that character. Um, GB says that Ivy Pachoda's book reminds him of Donna Tartt's The Secret History, modern Greek saga. Or you can retell a myths are great because myths are not real people. Myths, like the Bible too, myths are figures to enact a story that has moral implications, but they're not really people. So that to go in there and make those characters people is inhabit those mythological stories are very interesting. Um, um, Madeline Miller did it so far in 2 books. Circe, about in the Odysseus story, she's one of the Um, she's a minor deity. She's a Nereid, I think. She's the woman who seduces. She's a witch, and she seduces Odysseus, who stays with her for many years. Um, and one about Achilles, who was the great Greek warrior in the Trojan Wars, which was from the Iliad. So she's using that story. Uh, So to inject humanity into these figures is a very interesting thing to do. There are a couple of wonderful books set in the Bible using Bible stories. There's a woman named Mary Rakow, Rakow, who I'd been in workshop with Kate Braverman, who wrote a book of Bible of short stories, humanizing Bible stories, called This Is Why I Came. So half of it is Old Testament, half of it is New Testament. And it is so beautiful. And it really, by humanizing these figures, we get their response to what happens to them. And many of them are, encounters with divine. And it's not until you imagine yourself a human being in that story to think how disruptive having an encounter with divine would be for a real person. They're unbelievable stories, so beautiful. This Is Why I Came. And there's also a book called, it's the Adam and Eve story. And it's something, oh boy, Infinity in the Palm of Her Hand, it's called. And it's the Adam and Eve story from the point of view of, eventually it's Eve's point of view by it's an Italian. She's an Italian writer. Name is like this, but Infinity in the Palm of Her Hand. So the Bible is a wonderful. These are stories that have been told and told and told and told and told east of Eden. You know, the ejection from the garden. That's Steinbeck. Um, so Shakespeare has been retold and retold and retold in various guises. Why not? Why not? Um, but make sure that you're not just telling the same story that's already been written, because you don't need to write it. You can just read the original. You have to add something to the potion. You got to put something else in the pot to make it worth your retelling. There's a woman, I forgot the name of the author, but a retelling of Gone with the Wind from the point of view of one of the slaves, called The Wind Done Gone. And that's a wonderful reversal, to take somebody who's overlooked in the main story, in the older story, and flipping it. Oh, and GB says Macbeth was based on an old Scottish legend. Yeah. Oh my God, Shakespeare took his from everywhere. Uh, People say, oh, he wrote too much to have been one person. But in fact, he had the library of literature to draw from. Um, let's see, what else? Let you have any stories you've heard before, books that you've enjoyed that have been based on other stories? There's the story of King Minos and Ariadne and Theseus, the labyrinth, in a okay, what was her name? Uh, Mary Snar. Um, a book called The King Must Die, which I must have read 1,000 times when I was a kid. I just loved that book. Mary Renault is her name. Yeah, it's a very popular thing to do. Is recast books um, in present day, in other times and places, in other milieus, because there's something you want to say about it, something you want to say about that time and place. And, why not? If you have if you have trouble coming up with plot, that is a really nice thing to do, is retell a story, recast it, retell it in a different mode, in a different from a different point of view. What if this minor character feels that they are actually the star? And there's a comedic uh, way of casting that. So this is a comment when we were talking about how do you keep the voices apart in when you have multiple characters in dialogue. How do you keep them from sounding how do you keep them apart? How do you differentiate the voices? And GB says, do they mumble or answer you and then get mad later when you ask them the same question again, saying, I already told you? You know, people who are aggressive, people who don't listen, people will ask the same question because they didn't listen, people who interrupt. I mean, one of my very first short stories that was my very first short story that was published was a mother and a daughter at lunch. And the daughter is actually trying, she has a difficult relationship, but trying to get reveal something about herself, something that actually matters. And the mother is looking around, and in the middle of this revelation, the mother says, do you like hats? She sees a woman in a hat. And it's like, do you like hats? And here she's trying to tell like some essential truth about herself. And this mother isn't even listening. Um, and we feel it as well as the way the daughter feels it. Just, it's outrageous. Um, so interruptions are really a good way to handle the differentiations. It's also a power thing. Um, the person with more power tends to talk more, and then the person who has to listen, is like can barely get a word in edgewise. Uh, Amy says the movie "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" was inspired by the Odyssey. She thinks, yeah, God, I haven't thought about that movie for a long time. Um, All right. Well, I think we're coming to a close of our Writing Wednesday. I hope that you use whatever tools it takes if you're avoiding work or you're overwhelmed by all this crap that's going on now. If you're overwhelmed, if you're avoiding, if you're doom scrolling and then doing a bunch of puzzles or looking at the dog videos, trying to calm down. You're better off doing a Pomodoro with others or by yourself, using a timer. And the Pomodoro is is 4 sessions of 25 minutes with 5-minute breaks, and um, each 25-minute session, you declare your intention. Like, this is what I'm going to do with this 25 minutes. And I like doing it in Zoom. You can do it in real time, get together with other people, maybe a meetup. If you don't know other writers, you can do a meetup of some sort and say, we're going to we're going to put on timer and just write together 25 minutes. Very helpful. Um, or text. Um, that one of you is doing that. Just, everybody gets on text starting now, and they're working with you. There's something about that that really, really helps. Okay, well, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next week for Writing Wednesday. And please send me questions. Happy to answer them. Okay, bye bye.